Welcome to Walk the Talk, a podcast about people, culture, learning, and the inspiration in between. This is a space in which we'll invite colleagues and specialists to have a chat on what it means to grow and be our best self. Anytime, anywhere. This year marks Accenture's 17th annual International Women's Day celebration. On International Women's Day, we engage in open, honest, and meaningful conversations to further advance our commitment to equality for all. Aligning to our new brand purpose, the theme for International Women's Day 2021 is Accelerating Equality for All, Let There Be Change. We have with us today two very special guests. Raluca Burghelea, who is country lead for our operations entity, and Csilla Kőrösi, global innovation lead in our Industry X entity. Thank you so much for making the time to be with us today, and welcome to the podcast. Before we dig in deeper into the subject of women in leadership, tell us a bit about your personal story. What has your professional journey been so far? How did you start, and how did you end up being where you are?
Okay, so maybe I can start. I'm coming from a finance and accounting background, so throughout time I played various roles before in my life before Accenture. So I was an accountant, and then I was a controller. I joined Accenture in 2007, and we were a really small team at that time. We all knew each other by heart. I came as a service lead in operations, and then I stayed in operations throughout all these years. I grew in various roles, either in Romania or in the region, and then I developed into my current role as Romania operations lead.
Thanks, Raluca. In my case, this is actually a funny story because my journey actually started on a bus in 2006, and I like to tell this to everyone because when I just returned from my half-year US trip, and I was on my way to another interview when Yuri, you might know him, he's still at the company, called me with an offer, a job offer to join the firm and start the German-speaking help desk services back at the time. And it made me change my route for sure, a decision that I never regret. It was his support and another woman mentor from Germany I had during the first 4 years of my career that gave me an excellent jump start towards actually becoming team leader and going towards leadership because I absolutely loved working with people and solving new challenges. And then I took various roles, including building the rail automation capability, handling client contracting, client relationship matters, which again was a natural shift for me from project and program manager at the time. And that led into pulling up the Innovation Center of Excellence in Cluj and building out the Global Industry X Innovation Network through the past 3 or 4 years. So in a nutshell, I did end up being where I am as a result of having great guidance, great mentors, and having probably a good vision, hard work to achieve those goals, and a bit of luck. As I'm always telling my daughter, consider yourself lucky and then good things will follow. Just believe in it.
Of course. And luck is always necessary, but that's not everything. And of course, and Csilla and Raluca, your career path seems so easy. Seems like everything went smooth, but I'm sure it was not the case. So what would you say were your biggest qualities that brought you where you are? Because for sure it does need something special.
That's a funny question. Honestly, I was thinking that luck is a part of it, and definitely it's needed. What I think is that, for example, in my case, one of the things I noticed as throughout time in my development, I was extremely fortunate to meet people who were extremely supportive of me growing and who were able to point me in the right direction, to offer me the right challenges, to trust me when I didn't trust myself. And that was really helpful, to listen to me when I wanted to just complain or just talk to somebody, and that was really important as well. I think one of the funny conversations that I had was when we decided to open our operations in Timișoara, and my boss at the time was asking me to go there and set up the operations and run it for a while and so on. And my first reaction, and probably quite surprising because normally I'm quite a confident person, but my first reaction was, are you sure you really want me to go there? Because I'm scared about it a lot. And he was really laughing and telling me, listen, if I wasn't sure you can do it, I wouldn't have asked you in the first place. So these kind of conversations throughout your career and the support of the people around you are actually what you might need from time to time when you go through these self-doubt periods. And I guess we all have them. And as we grow in our career, we all need to pass these to the people we work with and offer this support to the people around us, because we have been offered in the beginning a helping hand.
I totally agree. And we all have those periods, Raluca, trust me. I myself was there like several times. So I think confidence is number one. You absolutely have, right? But it comes to you from childhood, etc. It is a natural. It's not a natural, but can be a natural given. But definitely, collaboration is something that I regard as a positive skill, or what that you have to have in Accenture. So collaborative leader is something that I would call as my strength. Positive thinker, for sure, that has helped me, because it's kind of a matter of a choice, right? You always have a choice. But if you choose to act differently, or embrace different opinions, or just stay confident, have trust in yourself, etc., collaborate across the globe with other teams, I think all those good things come.
Yeah, and maybe one last thing, because I realized while you were speaking, Csilla, you don't have to take yourself too seriously all the time. It's fine to actually be able to make fun of yourself and progress,
Exactly. We're only humans.
For sure, and thank you for pointing that out, because sometimes we tend to forget that we are only human. And for sure, both of you are an example of success, of career success, and I am most certain that it wasn't easy. And linking it more now to the International Women's Day and to our focus on accelerating equality for all, I would like to ask you one question to start up and to take this path of gender equality. Did you ever feel that being a woman is a disadvantage in your career, or was it on the contrary an advantage? How do you see it?
I'm a warrior, and for me, I never felt it as a disadvantage. I'm very much aware that it can be a disadvantage for a lot of women when we think about flexible work arrangements, when we think about equal opportunities. It really can be a disadvantage. For me personally, as I said, I'm a warrior, so when you're in danger and you have to choose if you want to fight or flight, my initial reaction is fight. So I would like to see the person who would actually want to discriminate me because of my gender or because of any other reason. But definitely this is a valid question and a valid problem that we need to address.
Yeah, for me, generally speaking, I don't like to think in such an black or white or edgy manner, right? We are equal human beings, and full stop, regardless of our gender. And that is my starting point when I perceive and talk to people. So I'm ready to be open to differences, embrace diversity. At the same time, I would lie if I would tell you I have not encountered any difficult situations where I felt uncomfortable. There were a lot. So being the only woman in the meeting room, even speaking up becomes a bigger challenge in itself than anticipated, not to mention to be heard, right, or listened to. So yes, it's still challenging, and that thought has crossed my mind. But I quickly learned the freedom of choice is yours. Again, you decide how you act, how you react in those situations. And certainly, if you think that being a woman is a disadvantage, it most likely becomes one. It is a matter of our own mindset, right? So just believe in yourself and in others' goodwill, and seize any opportunity to become an equal partner and an equal decision maker. That would be my advice.
So what you're saying, Csilla, is avoid self-fulfilling prophecies, right? If you think of yourself of being in a disadvantage, for sure that you will be. So just get that out of your head. That's a very good tip for us. We know that this happens, unfortunately. We know that this type of gender equality, inequality, better to say, does happen in companies. So what can companies do in general, and Accenture in particular, in order to promote women in leadership and a more gender equal working environment?
I think the question is indeed about the environment you create, which enables both genders to succeed, because we need to think what are the main problems that our women colleagues face and which prevent them to be successful, and we need to find ways to actually address them. Like I was mentioning earlier, flexible work arrangements. We need to invest in mentorship for our women, because most of the stopping points are the ones that we put on us. We tend to want to be the best employee, the best mother, the best wife, the best at everything, and most of the stopping points we face are the ones we raise for ourselves. Making sure through very clear actions that we put in place equitable compensation. And so it's about all the actions you do every single day. And to what Csilla was saying earlier, because I had this experience a lot of times to be the only woman in the room, or just me and somebody else. And it's about creating the right environment which includes everybody and allows everybody to express their opinion. And each of us, when we see that this is not happening, taking an action, stopping the behavior, and actually be more inclusive. And it's not only about women, it can happen the other way around as well. So we need to be careful on how we balance the gender without prioritizing the issues of any of the genders, males or females.
And picking up on what you just said, Raluca, more gender equal environment starts with the basic set of values, I think, which everyone gets at home. Like even girls, including, they should feel as much valued as boys, like equally from the very beginning. Then educational institutions, I guess, access to same programs, digital technology, no discrimination, right? And the first working experience you get into the company, you get exposed to diversified roles. Equally, women should get, areas of responsibilities from the very beginning. And one thing that helped me personally in my career was that very early on, I was put in those situations where I had to navigate through, right? So figure out what's the best way forward and bring the entire team with you. Obviously, it's a path of exploration and you sometimes fail, but that's the quickest way to learn. And if you have the right level of confidence, right, and the right DNA, I like to say, and the supportive system or environment in the company, you're going to thrive. And that's how I see more women actually anywhere could become leaders, right? Having a good framework for gender inclusion and simply put them in situations where they need to take responsibility. And I have faith that majority of women will just do fine or excellent even.
At the heart of every great change is a great human. Come help us create value.
You talked about a system, and indeed that is crucial, because maybe not all of the children are receiving the same kind of education that you've talked about. Maybe sometimes we're just lucky, and again, luck comes in the way, and we're educated in a way. But what happens with people, with our colleagues that are not? So I think that is where the system comes into play, and here is where we can do a lot within Accenture. And speaking about Accenture, Accenture publishes an annual report around this time of the year. This was produced together with Women 20 and Quilt AI, and the title is If Not Now, When? A Roadmap Towards a More Gender Equitable Economy Recovery. This is the title. And according to the research, women have been disproportionately impacted by COVID-19, which has extended the timeline to reach gender equality by 51 years. So somewhere in 2,170 something, so a lot. How have you felt the impact of COVID-19 in your personal life and in your teams, if you have?
I think the impact has been there, and it has been there since the beginning. And then as time went by, it was more and more visible, and it became more and more difficult for our colleagues to cope with it. I was surprised by the numbers you mentioned, and I suppose there is variation from one country to another, from one household to another. But in reality, I think that the combination of the pressure we put on ourselves that I was mentioning earlier to be the best at everything we do, plus the fact that throughout time, I think women have struggled to achieve the right balance between work life and personal life, and they felt always that they have to choose. The lockdown only expanded on this pressure to make the choice, and I don't believe we were, any of us, actually prepared for it. We have, through trial and error, throughout this period, tried to find coping mechanisms, try to understand, first of all, as a company, what we can do to support, but also as individuals, how we can make our lives easier. But I think the real pressure during this period was to understand for yourself that it's fine to give up at some point on, going to a meeting and say that you need to prioritize something else, or it's fine at some point to shout out for help because you are not able anymore to deal with the day-to-day stuff that is coming your way, either from your personal life or from your work life. And I'm not saying, because we see more and more people being exhausted by the whole situation, by what is happening inside the business as well as what is happening outside on the street. So I'm not saying that there is a recipe. I think we're continuing to try, and all the organizations continue to try to find the right programs, the right support systems, and each individual continues to try to find his balance in this whole situation.
I totally agree. It's like a trial and error, right? It's a process until we figure out what's the best way, and it's going to be very individual, country by country, or even region to region. So, but it was interesting. I mean, coming back to the study you mentioned, and gender equality agenda have become such high priority in today's society, and reading all those studies from other countries, I admit personally, I think Romania is doing quite good. I mean, compared to countries like Saudi or even India, where women fight just for their basic human rights and women's rights, I think that's a big difference. However, we still have a long way to go. I mean, in certain areas like education, as we said before, thinking here of the rural communities, for instance, and their access to education or digital tech, even equal pay or healthcare programs, and all these were heavily impacted by COVID, I think. And reading the study through, you were referring to the task forces dealing with the pandemic in the EU are not gender equal, right? So the decisions taken are not considering all aspects of society as of today, which, although women are majority in healthcare and some of the social caring institutions, right? So hearing this, I'm totally disappointed. Also because of COVID, I mean, absolutely personal life has been impacted. The whole team and I are in home office for exactly 1 year. One hell of a year. Honestly, it's getting tough, right? So at the beginning, we were all enjoying more flexibility in our daily routines and more family time, online meetings with our cameras on, and seeing that our colleagues are only regular people themselves. It made it fun, right? Made it somehow fun at the beginning. And we even got our chairs and desks at home to maintain physical posture. So that was good, but only for about 5 to 6 months. That's my personal experience.
Speaking of working from home and this impact that COVID has had, how, because you brought it up, Csilla, how do you handle the Zoom fatigue that is certainly has set up upon us all. And I'm asking this because according to the same research, COVID-19 has increased the importance of digital inclusion with more women, so that's about 54% relying on internet work from home, as opposed to men, which is about 35%. How would you see this, and how would you link it to all the Zoom fatigue that is around us?
Yeah, if I may continue on the same idea, right? So it was fun for 6 months. However, on a long run, I think motivation, I dare to say even productivity on both individual and team level has decreased. Decisions are taken much harder. Quick alignments need much more time than in the office usually. And team members often feel under the weather, right? Because of various reasons. And you know what? I totally understand and feel for them. Myself, I struggle sometimes with everyday routine from home as it's all blended together now. So work, caring for the kids. I have two, one at school, one in kindergarten still, household, including cooking, cleaning, groceries, supplies. So all the daily stuff, my garden and so on and so forth. Not to mention that you lost touch with your best friends, right? Or at least meetups have decreased, leisure time is impacted, and even a walk in the park is restricted, right, with covering up your face instead of taking a deep, long breath of fresh air. So it's really hard. And what we personally and family installed to cope with this, it's regular exercise, so at least 3 times a week, walk around during at least 1 meeting per day. That's what I have pointed out as my target. I must say it's tougher than I thought. Get fresh air every day. Try to get away, right? So family time in the mornings, and then in my productive period of the day, 10 a.m. until 1 approximately, when my kids get back from school, then I focus on work. When they get back home, I focus again on lunch, time with them, and get back around 2 p.m. until whatever, 6, 7, full speed. Obviously, I'm still perfecting my routine, but this is again like a trial and error constantly. And every now and then kids burst into my office crying, right? Because they had a fight or they just simply want to see me and hug me, right? Because they can. And it's a roller coaster, which is fun, but exhausting if you're riding it for a year.
Yeah, how true. Yeah. I and you having a smaller child, for sure you feel it extremely intensely. I'm lucky from this perspective in the sense that my son is a teenager, so basically he doesn't care about me at this point anymore. But the experience for me, it has been similar in the sense that it was very tough finding the balance. In the first few months when we were completely locked inside, the tendency was to bury in work, just probably not to think about what's outside anymore. So just continuously working over and over, which of course led to me being exhausted sometime in May, I guess. So post that, I kind of had a wake-up call and started to be much more pushy on finding some balance between my work life and my personal life. So throughout the day, what I'm trying to do is little things, because I realize that I can't change my habits altogether, and I'm not the exercise type of person. I would love to say that I am, but I'm not. So I'm just trying to do little things, like, for example, I want not to respond immediately to pings. I noticed that with all this continuous connectivity, everybody is pinging you constantly, and the more you respond, then the more you get interrupted and all things go south. Then I'm trying to change the pace of calls. We are a very driven company with clear objectives. We want to be efficient, we want to get into a call, we want to get things done. So we need to find ways to change the pace and somehow add into the calls some things about us. And it's fine to spend some time at some point in some conversations just not talking about the business. So trying to replace all those moments that we had in the office when we just met in the hallway and had a coffee together and spoke about nothing. And then what I'm trying to also do, I'm still exercising this, so I will not pretend that I managed to do it. I'm trying to block some time in my calendar so I don't end up jumping from one half an hour call to another half an hour call, each of them on different topics. And I think that if we manage to do that, or for me personally at least it worked, if I manage to do this, it gives me time to decompress and think a little bit instead of just having the feeling that you're on the run the entire day.
Mm-hmm. And that's very important, of course. And you said there, Raluca, about not talking so much business and focusing sometimes on discussing the things that you would have discussed in a coffee break, or if you would go out for a smoke with the colleagues. So let's do that right now, because I think we've talked a lot about business. So let's change a bit the idea. And I know, Raluca, that you're a big fan of Metallica, and we would be very curious if you would have 3 top songs on your playlist that would be an instant energy boost. I know all Metallica songs are immediate energy boost, but if you were to pick just 3, which would they be?
I would go with Master of Puppets. I would start with Master of Puppets. I would continue with Whiskey in the Jar. And my last choice actually would be a surprising one, I guess. It would be Moth into the Flame, and I recommend the version with Lady Gaga for a twist. You would be surprised. It's extremely nice.
I don't think I know that, but for sure I will search on YouTube as soon as we hang up the call. Were you at the concert 2 years ago? I think it was one of the last live big concerts that we had before the pandemic.
Yeah, true.
And you were present there? Did you go?
Of course.
Sorry for asking. It was so obvious. And Csilla, returning back to you, we know that you enjoy playing basketball. You already told us that going to the gym is a go-to source of energy for you. Can you tell us more about your passions? I don't know, Michael Jordan or LeBron James?
No, not that far-fetched. But definitely, I mean, basketball is my absolute favorite. As I grew up with it, basically, starting at my school's backyard, all the way into a sports club where I played professionally for about 12 years. And every weekend still, if I get a chance, I play for at least 2 hours, which gives me lots of joy and absolute energy. I even, teach my son how to play. My daughter is up next. So going, and definitely it's a family thing. It became a family thing. Going to the gym became a routine in the past 2-3 years only. And definitely pandemic hit them both, right? So you need to cope with missing out the daily practices, which quickly became like a lifestyle of mine, right? Staying fit, staying active, and learning healthy eating habits, which I can only recommend to everyone. It's refreshing and worth it. Sometimes
it's easier said than done, right? So it's best to have an actual example.
But it's an endorphin push, right? You get it on a regular basis, so.
For sure, and it's very important, especially in these days. Csilla, Raluca, thank you so much. I know that time is very valuable to you both, but if it were up to me, I would continue on discussing and asking you all sorts of questions, because I am really curious. If we would have just one last mention from you, and if you would like to leave our audience and our colleagues with one main thought from you on women in leadership, because that's our topic for today, what would it be?
For me, honestly, concentrate on little actions you do consciously to build the kind of environment in which both genders can be successful.
And mine would be probably don't ruminate, just do it. Because women tend to think a lot, think twice or even more when and how to speak up, or if to speak up at all, right? Just say it out loud if you mean it, and tell your best opinion on things, and I'm sure you'll have an opinion. And this is a perfect start.
And I think we men also ruminate a lot. so I think this is a piece of advice that could go both ways. Thank you so much, Raluca and Csilla, for accepting the invitation of being on this very special episode of Walk the Talk podcast. See you all next month on the topic of community building. Until then, have a good day and stay safe. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.